We're live. Episode 105, Lyrical Ones. I am Cineo. Joined, as ever, Al Fluent. How are you doing?
It's kind of nice. We're kind of 2 years into this thing. It's been a ride. I mean, we could talk about how we've been in this space where the planet has seen the most protests it's ever seen in life. And then people start chilling. Not only did they start chilling, they said life is more than buying toilet paper. So we're going to buy stuff. We're going to buy digital toilet paper. And so they did that. And while they did that, nobody was paying attention to the economy getting out of hand. It's like if you just keep buying all the stocks, if you just keep buying all the cryptocurrency, it'll be fine. But it was not fine. And it's not fine. People got so tired of protesting that when people try to pass a bill, when people said we go ban abortion, it was like, this sucks. And then you want to go outside to do nothing about it when they can go outside. When they could not go outside, when they couldn't go into the stores, like the less distractions people have, the more likely they are to speak up about what's going on in the world. But now that folks got they in Asia and India got they tick in India specifically got their TikTok back, and they got their Instagram, and they got social media, and now they got outside. Folks ain't really protesting for farmers like they was. Uh, this line has changed since episode 10. A lot has changed since episode 20. A lot has changed. And it's all kind of wild. So I'm in a good space. I mean, a lot has changed in my life, and I'm okay with it. I love it. I'm happy to come home. And I can't say that I could have said that before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, 2019, it took me flying 7,000 miles just to feel like I could experience something that felt like home. And so that was eye opening and life changing. And now I didn't experience a situation, a life, a phase in my life, a season, if you will, where I've gone so many months, so many days, over a year without leaving the country for the first time in 6 years. And I've learned that staying in this country don't make me like it more. And traveling don't make me like this country more. So it's really kind of wild to think of. At some point, I'm gonna be broadcasting from another country somewhere at some point. But that's okay because we already done that. We already did that in the first 200, first 100 episodes. So now all we can do is break records. I think where I'm at right now. I think I need a singing bowl. That's the next. That's the next thing we ain't had on this. We ain't had on this podcast yet.
As the frequency increases, what strikes me is I just got finished watching a podcast that I appreciate through Earn Your Leisure with 19 Keys, and they had a singing bowl, and they rang it every so often throughout the podcast. It was a dope conversation. Him and his mentor, who goes by the name of Blue Pill, they had a really dynamic, in-depth conversation about more or less the higher self, really exploring the spiritual plane, the ethereal realms, really taking the time to like process and learn from self. And so when you say, right, like to be able to enjoy coming home, which hearing you say it sound like the first time I've heard it. Having been on here now for 105 episodes weekly, 2 years, have passed. And yeah, reflecting back on where we started and where things are and reflecting on it is like learning that the evolution of my thought process or my way of practicing my presence, my way of showing up, my resistance, my forwardness. Cause I've listened to some of these episodes and what we've been saying, and it's such a I get lost sometimes because I'm like, how did this happen? Who are we first? Like, who are these people that are saying these things? Um, because it's like after it's been said, the door has been shut. And if I don't look back, I don't even know that room existed. I don't even know that place was built. That there was this creative force that came together that made something. Because again, we go on to make it to the next thing, and sometimes it's it was prompted by me doing descriptions, but now it's like really going over my notes, going and tracing over the steps, really looking at uh, what has changed, where have I grown from. Now, what hasn't changed? My stance on a lot of things has not really changed. How I approach them has changed. And going to what you were saying about how, yeah, like they being a proverbial group of people who have the means to provide people with distractions, gave a lot of distractions. There are a lot of distractions. And more than ever, jumping into this moment where we are right now, it's the year 2022. It is the month of June, the 15th day of the month. And I'm like, one, I'm so ready for so much. The challenge is not to say that I don't have moments of like insecurity or self deprecation or just these thoughts that can be pervasive in a form that is harmful, but I'm always ready to challenge those thoughts. I'm always ready to fight those thoughts. I'm always ready either by myself or with community to overcome and surpass those thoughts. And looking at everything is such a like it's amazing and it's also alarming. Going to what you were saying about, you know, seeing what it's like to have a different perspective in your physical location, moving to somewhere else in the world, being in a different country, seeing something and being immersed in something different. Because I've recently looked at the direction of where things are headed and the conversations that are happening. And to me, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that further we are further from conversation and we are diving headfirst into like organized chaos, right? It's just it's intentional. It's like a practical delivered vehicle that's taking you to a state that is no resolve. It's just disruption, destruction, and harm. And it's in a minute way because your distractions give you comfort. I think about like the 40 acres and a mule or the promise of the American dream. I think about these different things and how well crafted it's becoming further and further from something that everyone has access to. Accessibility. I always go back to that accessibility. How accessible is this? How accessible are things? Your education, your mental health, your physical health, your food. It's access. What grants you access, right? If I'm growing a family, then what am I giving them access to as a person who's going to take the lead on establishing what is our practice, what is our vicinity, like what's in proximity, right? Like these are different things that I've given intense thought, right? Measure twice, cut once, listen twice as much as you talk. And yeah, like I feel you. I look at different countries and I see where there's land, and I first thing I do is I see how high is it from the sea level, because in case of flooding, I want to be prepared. Just in case it floods, I just want to make sure where if I plot down somewhere, I got a little head up on the possibility of flooding because I see what's coming. People have told me like over and over again, I'm watching on your leisure, and it's about money and finance, but it's also about how you can predict, just looking at the past, certain trends and how things grow, how things morph, mutate from what's been pre-established. And in my soul, I break away. People project to me what they think will happen to me when whatever event's going to take place. Oh, you going to be a father. Oh, well, you say that now, but watch. What they fail to realize, as much as they've projected every step of the way, oh, you say that now, wait till you marry. Oh, you say that now, wait till you live with someone. Oh, you say that. I have never, ever, ever not been the person that I am the whole time. They keep saying what's going to happen when, forgetting that every time I get to it, I'm still me. Ain't no difference. It's easy to discount, compartmentalize, and segment, right, a person based off of your own perspective because it's hard to step outside yourself. And that's where we are right now. That's where we are collectively as a community. That's where we have found ourselves. It is so hard to see it from the other person's perspective. There's a documentary called Century of the Self. Everything that I'm seeing right now is based off of that principle of individualism, the self being the forward, being the first, being paramount in every decision. It we were hunter gatherers. We gathered together in communal tribal affiliations. Those things are so loose in terms of how people hold to them, how much they believe in it, how it's utilized, how it's placed as a marker of identity more than it is about a moment for empathy. And so I'm like, yeah, a different country don't sound so bad. A different country to the world. I like I hold allegiance to love, peace, harmony. If it ain't bringing me that, I don't have to hold allegiance. This misaligned sense of pride just because you're here or just because you're from somewhere, whatever the case may be, this this land, for what it's worth, was a land of opportunity for a period of time. That opportunity is coming to a close. And I'm saying that because we spent 2 years, right, coming from protests, coming from turmoil, coming from pain, from death, from anger, from sadness, from grief. And as I started a journey to leave my job, which I've left behind, now it's starting a journey in some regards, leaving what I've known behind in terms of where I live, whether that's a city, a state, an area, a location. As I engage in my own growth more and more every day, and I fight the tide of like trying to repackage my trauma as this semblance of a rite of passage, I realize I can't hold on to certain things the way I did. Like, I love coming from the city. I love San Francisco. But I've also learned that San Francisco has no love for anyone because it is not a person, it is just a place. Opportunity has been rampant in terms of the tech and in terms of privatizing public housing, in terms of the political tide and the engagement of political leaders with the people. It ain't got nothing to do with love. So as much as I love this place, what am I holding on to? And when I look at the people who say they from where they say they from, they not from where they say they from. So I gotta ask myself, oh, that's me looking at what's been given to me with my people who's in my proximity, who has been accessible in their perspectives. And now me realizing more than ever, I don't hold true to that because I want something different, as I've always had. I thought about it, I'm thinking about it. And as much as there may be some hesitation or fear, I've learned that fear oftentimes is a way for me to learn. It's a moment for me to understand because I can rationalize what's going on if I take the time to process what's going on and make a move. But yeah, like, man, you really jumped off the deep end because thinking about that statement, like leaving this place when it's like everybody's running to this hole, right? Everybody's jumping in and it's filling up. And having the benefit and the awareness of self to know, oh, I'm already here. Maybe it's time for me to move out the way to let them go and do what they need to do because my impact is not lost depending on where I'm at. It's all about what I do wherever I am. And I'm like, yeah, after a while, you can only keep saying it before you do something about it. In my perspective, my beliefs, my practice, I ain't gonna sit up here and keep saying it. I'm gonna just be about it. I'm gonna do something. And I can't keep playing in this game of facades or lesser evils. Like, I'm cool. Y'all could have y'all demons. Y'all could keep on trying to repackage them as something to believe in, as something that's worth leadership, when in reality, it ain't got nothing to represent me. I am no longer in alignment with it. I no longer am invested in this game where the outcome is disparaging and getting worse. It's like, for real? It's literally written out in front of you. And I get it. For some people, it's easy to just consume it and take it in because it's been processed with the fine flavor and the palate to like give you that sense of like release. Your serotonin's kicking in. You feel that joy that, oh, this is so delicious, right? That's a metaphor for everything that people consume themselves with. And there's some of us who like, that ain't right. I can't do it.
Hmm.
Not to that degree. Maybe in moderation, maybe once in a while, but not to the degree of what's going on. And that's how I see the world right now, where it's like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, ain't gonna fool me again.
W knew what he was talking about in that moment.
Bruh, people be right even when you don't like them. People be right even when they've done wrong. People be right even when they've done harm and haven't even addressed, have repaired, have done. People be right.
They
I
be
said
right
this.
when they wrong, and that's that's fine. Sometimes we have to experience the deep end of what it means to let go of an an identity that I adopted versus acquiring or realizing or remembering an identity that's true to who I am. Right? Because like you said, I've always been me. Right? I've never not been me. I've always been that same person. Right? And at whatever age, right? That person exists. That person is still me. And my future, right, is as much a part of my past as it has always been. Right? I was always gonna play, right, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I was always gonna play Ocarina of Time. I was always gonna play Majora's Mask, and I was always gonna go back in time and forward in time within this story. That was always gonna happen. I was gonna come across the Master Sword a few different times, and it was always gonna be Link's fault that stuff hit the fan. And right, as a hero, sometimes you gotta say, "This is my responsibility because I messed up 1,000 years ago." And every time you decide to live somewhere or choose to stay somewhere, you say, "Okay, I'm linking this story," and I probably could have saw stuff was gonna go bad. Probably had some foresight, and I chose to ignore it. I probably had a little inkling of a intuition, intuitive feeling that told me something ain't right. And when you wake up every day feeling like that, got to measure and say, is this because of where I live? Is this because of the system that I am? Is it because I'm playing defense when I feel like I should be playing offense? Or is everyone pressuring me to play offense when really I'm good at defense and I need a partner to play offense for me? I need a relationship with folks who like to play offense so that I can do my job on defense. Because in the end, right, I'm just trying to win. And right, this country is made for entrepreneurs, right? It's made for folks like they said on EYL one time, right? It's made for people who make employees, right? The businesses that make employees, right? Those employees become consumers. So the more consumers you make, the more of a tax break you get. But when you, as an individual, switch from being a consumer to a person with business expenses, Uncle Sam is like, that's all right. You might make employees someday. Go ahead and write that off. Go ahead and write that gas off. Go ahead and write that shirt off for your work clothes, your work uniform, your operating attire. Go ahead and write that off. Go ahead and write off the miles. Go ahead and write off that trip. And that's all, right? That's all. That's something you folks got to understand because they won't tell you in school. They say you could be anything, but do I want to be anything or do I want to have a roof over my head? Basically, they should say you can be anything if you can find a way to monetize it. If you can find a way to enterprise it. If you can find a way to incorporate it into life skills, life sustaining skills. So if you are able to package something, you can be anything. If you are able to sell,
Definitely.
if you are able to sell something, you can you're doing better than most. Because a lot of people don't even want to sell, right? They at their heart, at their core, they prefer to barter. They prefer an exchange of goods. not of currency. Currency ain't goods. Maybe I don't want to buy a house. Maybe I just want shelter. Maybe I just want equity. Maybe I just want a solid school district. Maybe I just want some passive income. Do I really got to go and entertain the system of credit and debt just to own so that I actually don't own because I've now taken out a loan that I have to pay back? Say, okay, maybe I can just pay all up front, but I don't really get no goods. But yeah, and this experience in 2 years, it looked like, oh, you don't really have to hold on to this identity of being from this country, you know, from this city, from this area and region. And you start to find what's within and navigate that way. Say, oh man, I'm not really uh, a sucker free pedestrian. Maybe just I'm just Alex. I got a lot of thoughts and feelings in my head on how to keep hydrated, keep my skin moisturized. Maybe I'm just Alex, and I don't need the identities that are thrown at me because my birth certificate says somewhere, or because my address says somewhere I'm this type of person, or because my address don't. Uh, I'm reading that back. But like whatever my address says doesn't mean that's who I am, right? It's a piece of me. It it's a chapter in my lived experience, but just because it's the part of the first few addresses I've lived in doesn't mean it's supposed to dictate my whole life. Nor does it mean I'm supposed to stay here. But in my search for identity, I got to be true to myself and say, uh, ain't enough room here to buy no land. Ain't enough, ain't enough opportunities here to raise more people that look like me. Ain't enough safety. Ain't enough security. Ain't enough people looking out for each other for me to stay here. And if I go somewhere, I gotta make sure that it's a safe space for me to land. Right? It's like the difference between a moss covered stone and a lily pad. Because we know that the moss covered stone is actually very slippery. And the lily pad may be light and flimsy, but it could be serving its exact purpose. Sometimes you step in a direction that slows you down. Sometimes you step in a direction that supports you. Sometimes you step in a direction that teaches you. Sometimes I step on that stone, right? And I'm prepared. I don't slip off that stone and I got support and I can take another step. I step on that lily pad, it might sink to the floor. And yes, that'll be my coat. It'll also be it'll also be what teaches me, not just what I'm wearing, but also what I'm living and learning.
No, I mean, old me would have said, let me just find where it ain't killing a lot of black people, but it's black people, and I'll go there. That was the old me. Now it's a matter of understanding where that come from. How did I get to that point? And so the new frame of thinking is what's gonna have the most for prosperity, right? How are people prospering? And do I envision myself in alignment with that? I could focus on the negative aspects or I could focus on the positive. It doesn't mean that I'm not aware of the negative. It's that I'm not investing in it any more than the thought that I already have. I can say a couple words about it, discuss it with the people that I feel it's important to discuss it with, and take it from there. I do believe wealth is monetary wealth is a human right. I do. I believe it's something that everybody should have access to. And there's varying degrees. Some people want access, don't know how. Some people say they want access, don't want to put forth the energy. There's so many variables and levels and different intertwined meanings and philosophies on that whole statement.
Right.
I can identify how I've benefited and privileged from who I was raised by, the time period, what I've learned, the skills I've been able to attain, the accessibility and proximity to resources and support systems and community and people to be able to learn and see what's best for me and my family moving forward. Knowing that the work and time that I have to put into what I do is a lot more concentrated, it's a lot more taxing, but even more, it's worth it because I know ultimately I answer to myself. I know that it means more to me to be able to choose who I work with than to get a check for my time and then I have to navigate things that I'm not invested in, things that I can't get behind, things that are problematic, harmful, or don't serve a real purpose, don't serve
Mm.
me, don't serve community, don't serve the things that are in alignment with who I am as a being in this period of time that I'm in. The moment is fleeting and I am so much more appreciative of the time that I have and what I have access to. And I'm saying all that because as we talk about where we live, as we talk about our identity, as we talk about being 2 years into this, you know, this routine of showing up, having conversation, this is for people to engage, but it's more than that, right? This is a time stamp and a marker of where where we stood, where history time and time again will show you something, in historical terms for the past 2 years where we have stood. And beyond the 2 years, what we've been able to pull from to communicate to you. And it's in the sense of healing. It's in the vein of hope. It's in faith. It's in trust. It's in communication. It's in relationships and community. It's important for us to say these things for those that may feel like it doesn't exist.
Mm.
You can know that it was there, regardless of whatever happens next. You have something to refer to and look back on, and you can pull from as a resource, or to just have support in some fashion, some facet that it keeps going. Because before I'm looking
Mm.
for survival instead of thriving. And now, as I see every challenge and every moment that pushes me, it's just another opportunity. That's all it is. I'm not looking for guarantees. I'm looking for opportunities. It's so real because this is a country that's created even if it's not created for what it's showing you right now, it's for people who are willing to make businesses, who are willing to create streams of income and revenue, and who want to put themselves in the marketplace. And I see that. I see that every which way. I see that in so many different forms where NFTs, for example, right? It's an opportunity to create a new wealth class. It's another entrance into wealth accrual or security. And as we look and see that the crypto world is being challenged and the stock market is being challenged, it'll come back because it does, but it'll only benefit those that understand it. It will only benefit those that have taken the time to really measure what it's worth beyond the moment, beyond what the tantalizing aspects of it are. Because at moments like this, where everyone's scared and everyone's frustrated, if you paid attention and you were looking, then you would know this was coming. This is just what you do. You prepare for the storms. And I'm relatively unmoved, but that goes to show that where I'm at in my life is I've developed a certain level of skill set and I have enough experience to keep me steady on the course, whereas others feel like they got to jump off the boat. Because I understand that you got to weather the storm. That as scary as it could be, if you know what you're doing and you're willing to work through it, you can get through the storm. It's a risk, of course. There's so much risk. You can't get away from it. But what risk do you take? And what will you be satisfied with once it's all said and done? And for me, yeah, I'm like, yeah, 2 years later, the mask is still here. It's a newer one, but it's still a mask. It may not be the original, but it's designed like the original. It's improved in some form, in some way, as I see myself being the same person who's grown, who's developed, who's
That's right.
taken the time to really process and heal and to see myself anew in a different light. Literally a different light. I mean, come on. When you go back to the first episode and then you see where we are now, it is literally new light. And that's the reality. That we're pushing for progress, we're pushing for growth. And the world, as I'm looking at it, not everyone, but there is a vast number of people who are so willing to grasp at old, at what was, that they're willing to do so in order to give up a lot more than they're actually working for. And I see it in the way that people have always been quick to be manipulated. People, invest energy and time into individuals who they think has status, wealth, who have more value, even though they don't. They really don't. We are all valuable just the same. Now, if you want to go and add a monetary value to that, it means nothing. But people will attribute monetary wealth to a person's value, and it's not. It's not equitable. It's not even remotely logical. But that's what happens because look at the candidates that we have when it comes to the politics. When
Yeah.
it comes to our leadership, we can see that having that monetary backing goes a long way. Having
Mm.
the ear of CEOs and people who got the millions and billions of dollars that influence now goes a long way. And so for me, I'm not interested in playing into that game because I am a firm believer if you're willing to tend to your own and you really strengthen that, you ain't got to worry about what's happening over there yonder. But what do? Some of us become so consumed what's happening over there yonder, we ignore and become detached or become disengaged with what's happening in front of us. And me, I can't help but be informed, engaged, and tapped in because my heart won't let me see it no other way. I want to have a family. I want to have space. I want to have room. I want to have peace and safety and harmony and joy and love. Not to say it doesn't come without its own challenges, but you ain't got to make it that hard. For some of y'all ain't got to make it that difficult. But I understand why. I see why. It's not a
Mm.
judgment. It's just as I continue to explain and describe my thought process, my practice, my way, you can derive something from it because as much as I'm challenged, I am happy. But when I talk to others, I can tell that is not the case.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of me telling you what to do. It's a matter of, are you willing to put forth the work and the energy to find a way? Some of you, it may never work. Some of you, you're just not giving yourself a chance.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's a 100% guaranteed resolve, but I'm a firm believer that there's something out there. There's something there, whether it's the time period or whether there's an actual person or a practice or a philosophy or a faith, something, there's something there that can grant you access to more, and not more in terms of despair and harm, but more in terms of growth, love, and peace. And that's the thing that I'm like really reflecting on as we come to this, yeah, new year, this new era, this new
Right.
time.
New for us.
I mean, it's super new. It's always new. It's a blessing, and I'm thankful and I'm grateful that I get to experience it in the way that I am now. But it is one of those things where I'm just hoping that like people forget that like it. I won't even say forget.
Hmm.
It's just what you're looking at. What are you looking at? I seen a
No.
video of the per 100,000 100,000 capita people who the countries where murder is rampant, right? And it's like seeing this country, El Salvador, maintain a position of number one or come up and down through the ranking of like the top three over the course of 20 plus years. And knowing how that's associated to my own upbringing in my household and the conversations I've had with my father about going to El Salvador. And now that the numbers are dropping, I'm looking at what is the commentary and discussion around the leadership that's going on there and how easy it is to just discount, minimize, dismiss the changes for the sake of creating a narrative, controlling a narrative, right? When you look at who owns news media and owns these different companies, and you start to realize that there's just a small few group of people and there's so many different outlets, you really got to ask yourself what the information is because again, Century of the Self is a documentary. I know it's going to be boring because it's not made in the tantalizing, sensationalized way that media is now manufactured to keep you engaged in a very routine, betray your audience or, you know, kind of give into the pleasures of who you are and what you think you like, what you think you like.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's this thing where marketing has become central in the way that we operate, right? How can we get people to make irrational decisions, right? How do we trigger their emotions to get them to act in a way to do XYZ, right? Oh, we're so tired of XYZ, so let's protest. Okay, so what
Right.
changes are we implementing? What are we doing to create structures to put people in position to actually carry out the change that we're seeking? Or are we just here to have a grieving moment to grieve together? Because I'm not interested in grieving. I've said this many times, many episodes, lost a lot of family. My practice and my form of grieving is to not do what's been done before. Because as I escape death, I do things that promote life. I do things that engage with change. I provide myself with the means for something different. It's not supposed to be, oh, it's what I feel, it's what I like. Not all the time. It's not.
Yeah.
Because when I've seen the people who kept going with what they feel and what they like, too much of anything is bad for you. And when you really think about the feelings that you're feeling, is it you escaping or avoiding what's going on? Are you distracting yourself from what's in front of you? Some of us can't avoid it. Some of us it's hard. Some of us it's difficult. And some of us, I mean, like I said, keep on consuming. We so smart. We just so smart out here. We are the most smartest people in the whole entire world. 9 times 4 is 36,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if you take, the 4 90-degree angles, that's 360 degrees, right?
Yeah.
360 degrees being a circle. We live on a planet, right, where there's no straight lines. I'm straight jacking this from 19 Keys because he said it, right? But they never expanded upon that 360 degrees broken up into four pieces, right? It's 90 degrees each, right? 90,
Yeah.
90, 90, 90, right? You look at your phone, you look at your TV, you look at the house you live in, nine times out of nine, it's going to be some squares. It's going to be some rectangular positions, angles. You look at your tables, your desks, your chairs, there's some angle, there's something that is, I mean, down to the brick of top ramen, it's rectangular. Cup of noodles, not so much, but hey, they find ways. But yeah, you really think about it, right? And it's like, we're of this or earth, we're of this world, we're of this thing, and we try so hard not to be. We
Mm,
put so much energy into getting further and further away from where we are and where we've been, right? We put concrete beneath us, we put asphalt beneath us, we put rubber beneath our shoes, we put an insert, a sole, a sock, right? We'll do anything and everything to remove ourselves from the natural state of which we really come from, right? We are the living proof of success over periods of time and legacies, and people who have died, people who have gotten sick, people who have been cut short. We are the byproduct of just life. And that life as it's existed, right? We just, man, put everybody in one area, right? Put everybody in one district, let them all live on top of each other, no space, no room, right? Say there's opportunity there, right? Just keep
right.
putting and festering more and more on top of each other till there's what? Someone on top and someone just holding everybody else up. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, basically the identity can always be in related to like our proximity of what we have or our proximity to those who don't have what we have. If that's where my identity is, then basically I can lose track of who I am, I mean, at any intersection and in any moment, any gathering, if my identity is operated in a way that's so flimsy and volatile, then I'm gonna have to find another way. I'm gonna have to find another way to find out who I am. I can't. If it's just all about money, right? It's like having capital is great, but like some people, right? They in a space, right? They move to places where they can only barter. They move to places where some trade or skill set has to be your focus in certain areas of the world, pockets of villages and things.
Pockets and villages now turns into huge, gigantic bags of cities.
Right. The shopping bags, IKEA totes.
Super IKEA totes. I was just thinking about it as you're saying it that like the I'm exploring the concept of shame, right? In the mental health practice, they often right cite that they try to stay away from shame, shaming people into outcomes and actions. I can't help but feel like shame is somehow tied to empathy. I can't help but feel like if I feel shameful, if I feel like I brought shame to my family, my mother, my father, I'm thinking of them as well and how what my actions will do impact them, how it will make harm. And maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe that's just it. Maybe I'm just a series of massive wrongdoings. I don't really feel that way, but as I continue to speak, maybe that will be illuminated. Shame. Shame is something that like it's such a it's like the word and what it means, and then there's how people use it.
Right.
That's how it comes and goes in my mind, right? And that's kind of how we look at the world right now, where like I'm seeing in a variety of ways People are so quick to speak up on what they're being harmed by, but then also saying, well, we don't want to shame people, right? We want you to make the change and understand the impact that it's had on us and the harm, but we don't want to shame you, even though more times than enough it is shame, just without putting shame in the equation, right? And I'm really trying to like create the words for empathy in action, right? It's one thing to feel how someone else feels or to put yourself in their shoes. It's another thing to let that empathic energy be the force to change or the force to action or the force to do something, right? The call to action is feeling that empathy. And I can't help but feel like shame somehow plays a role in that
Yeah.
when you take into consideration, it's natural for people to feel sad or to feel bad, but we try to avoid that, right? We try to find ways to escape that sense of feeling, right? Don't you feel responsible? Don't you feel accountable? But if you have no shame, well, why would you, right? If I'm delaying any sense of shame and all I'm doing is seeking gratification, if I'm constantly seeking an outlet for joy or pleasure, right? Not happiness, right? Joy is fleeting, fun is fleeting. Those are momentary. Happiness takes work. But
That's
if I
right.
don't talk about shame and how shame plays a role, like when I think about the reasons why I chose not to do those things that I seen other people get put in position or places, it was shame. I can look at my family and see the moments where they made these grave errors, and it was out of grief of not having the person there that grounded their shame. The person who they didn't want to hurt from their actions was no longer around. So what did they do? They acted out in pain, right? Their shame was already self-deployed when they had to deal with the other people who were still around, when they were brought back to the reality that, oh, there's still people here who love me and care for me. Maybe not the centralized mother or father or figure that I have come to see as a pillar, right? That pillar's now been removed. I'm on shaky ground. My foundation is slipping. I'm about to make a choice. I'm committing myself to action. It's going to be harmful. And now I have to be forced into consequences, jail or some type of injury or some type of outcome that's prolonged through usages of substances and how those actions will then ripple through and impact all those around you. It is it's twisted how there's it's easy to get on the slippery slope of, oh, that's what I heard. My interpretation says, right? This is how I'm going to use it.
Right.
Because I think about how there's a lot of people who've been so incredibly privileged and haven't had anywhere near the same amount of adversity, yet are offering up insight and information and having a dialogue with people who are in extreme pain, and yet the conversations around shame and empathy seem so morphed. And I'm saying that because everything is intertwined. As much as you eat vegetables that then rejuvenate your body with the necessary nutrients, right? The processed food will give you certain outcomes. It's so much sodium. There's so many chemicals and how your skin or your digestive system or your cardiovascular, all these things will respond to that, right? There's so many levels of balance, right? You eat too much spinach, you're gonna have an outcome. If you drink too much water, you're gonna have an outcome. Now, you have to have a considerable amount in comparison to eating hot Cheetos or Takis all the time, but think about it, right? Think about it. And I'm saying that in the parallels of your mental health because I'm reflecting back on all the different moments of people who are offering up insight, knowing that they're so far removed and detached from the real life that everyone is living, where majority of them have been benefited in a way like it's crazy. Like I'm thinking about it as it's happening right now. There's people who come from where I come from, have committed themselves to the practitioners of mental health through the classification and meritocracy that is the education system. And in many ways, they are so worn out by the people that surround them, who are people that don't come from where I come from, who continue to pervade in a way that is like, this is the way. And
Right.
deep down in their cores, the more they educate and the more they come acclimated and the more initials they add onto their name, they realize more and more they got to keep pushing up forward, right? But they don't have the same securities as their parents can just buy the building that they live in, or that can offer them the financial footing where they never have to consider, right? Like, oh, I want to have a family, and then my family's legacy doesn't come from money, so now I feel as though I'm limited in my ability to continue this education to get more initials so I can actually challenge these people in power who keep telling me the way. Right? Like, it's such a twisted thing where there's some who's going to be willing to make the commitment, but they're still a rarity because they were just crazy enough to say, you know what, I'm going through with it anyway. Where someone else is like, you know what, I got enough money, I'm getting out the game, or you know what, I got enough money, I'm chilling, I'm just going to now be like everybody else, right? I'm just not trying to get my little piece of land knocked off. I'm not trying to get what I got going as comfort removed because I don't want to disturb. And then I see people who are trying to do the work, and then they're preyed upon, they're
Yeah.
manipulated because no one's there to come to their aid, or they've been put in a position where they're the only one of their kind. And then they're put under pressure to either perform in a way or commit themselves to an action that's going to get them out, i.e., me. I've seen it in my
Yeah.
peers. I've seen it with the people who I've worked with, the colleagues, the different perspectives that I've gained. And 2 years later, I've made the choice to step away from the nonprofit industrial complex in the context of these larger organizations that are fundamentally flawed in a very systematic, bureaucratic, archaic process. I'm not gonna attribute it to no color no more. Y'all see the colors, and if you can't see them, well, for the blind, that in terms of skin color, because if you're blind, you really can't see skin color. All you can do is hear my voice, which then you ascertain, oh, I must be XYZ given the slight variation in how I enunciate words. So again, I'm not gonna say color. You can refrain and do what you must. I'm just gonna leave it in terms that are extremely binary, not in color. Nope, not in color. Numbers, zero and ones, yes and no's, on and off switches, um, computer chips, archaic, outdated, antiquated, bureaucratic, right? These systemic, these very just
Problematic.
problematic, toxic, harmful, right? These core kind of components to how we operate as entities within this modern era, right? We don't break free from it because if we did, we're too afraid of the consequences that exist within the system and the structure of it. We're too consumed with serving it and keeping it up.
Meanwhile, the consequences are exactly what you not running from or not retreating from, not you not escaping. The consequences is living in the same way with the same servitude toward a system that has no interest in your well-being. Right? You live, and then because you live with the consequences for so long, you fear what it's like to live without them. And then you meet the lyrical opposition community, and then you say, "Hey, it's actually now worth it to stay in this system. I should start looking for my exit, right? Not just my exit route, but my exit plan, which then becomes the blueprint for my lifestyle plan." And I think that's so important that people find that and say, this is going to be the lifestyle that we want. And it is valid because it is the opposite of the lifestyle we're living. And maybe it's not the opposite, but it definitely can be an improvement as you find, right, the shift. Because right, it's not just quitting a job, it's also having a plan on how to sustain yourself, how to encourage and lift up yourself, your friends, family, how to navigate and find the maintenance that you need to heal and unlearn.
Well, it's I mean, to go in depth with what you just said real quick, Um, a massive amount of credit to you and Lo and Cross and Figo, um, because as I've been a patron, as I've been admirer on the outside perspective for many years, to make sure I'm doing the critical work that when I do decide to apply myself, I'm ready to be present in a way that is supportive, responsible, healthy, that's mindful of who I am in the space. Because yes, you can go and seek out people and find a community, but you must, I implore you, I suggest, do a critical self inventory of where you are and how you can be of best of service and usage, right? Because as much as you receive and you will gain, you want to also make sure that you're able to give. And that's something that, as much as we rush into a group, right, if we're not clear in communicating where we are and have a certain self awareness to inform those around us, your actions may come out as being harmful, toxic, problematic, and a part of the structure you're trying to leave. You have to be very mindful of what it means to be vulnerable, of what it means to be uncomfortable for the sake of growing, for the sake of supporting those around you and supporting yourself. Because as long as I've known you, Affluent, right? I've said this last week, I'll say it now, right? You've always been a good dude, right? It's like that's just what it's been. And to watch LO from afar and see the energy that's been fostered with you, with Cross, with OD, right, with Son the Gifted, it's admirable. It's always been admirable. Now, whether or not I have the self esteem or the courage or the confidence or the focus to want to apply myself to what I see, right? That's a big difference. And to know that, like, yeah, for years, as much as I've witnessed, right, it wasn't until I knew within my core that I was ready to apply myself, I applied myself. And to now be blessed and fortunate to have the interactions and receive the energies that I'm getting, it's amazing because it is about the community. It is about having those people and being ready to lean in, step into it. So when you're there, you're able to give fully, you're able to give your all, you're able to do and show up in a way that's not just authentic, but it's meaningful, right? That
and supportive.
it's supportive, right? And I think that, for those out there that are looking to seek and building community and understanding, right, like, oh, this doesn't suit me, this doesn't fit me. There's so many people who I know who are looking to find a way outside of the structures that are common and everywhere. And they're like, they're going hard and it's beautiful. It's amazing. I am humbled. I am encouraged. I am enlightened. I am filled with so much that is positive, that is great from seeing people pursue what they in their heart know is for them. And so, I just, yeah, as we come to the beginning of another lap around the sun with the Lyrical Ones family, with the Lyrical One listeners, just to put it out there for those that are listening, June 25th, we will be doing a showing of the first cut, the first iteration of the reintrification film. It will be at Tanforan Mall. As it begins to dwindle, we will be able to light it up, live it up, and enjoy the little bit of time we have left with a staple of consumerism and my childhood to be at an art gallery, A to Z Art Gallery in Tanforan. It will be on the 25th. More information to come. Please be on the lookout. Stay connected to all of our social media. Again, we're about community. We're about building. There will be, some events we'll be doing and come with the ability to be engaged, to be present, right, and know how to show up when you're in space with people who are there to, like, yeah, we're there to build together, right? Be prepared for that because it is a thing where it's like support looks like many things, but are you mindful of the support that you're bringing, right? Because as much as it's there for your entertainment and your enjoyment, we're seeking to build with people. And I think it's important that when you come to the spaces, just keep that in mind, right? If you want to be an observer, be an observer. But if you want to engage, it's okay to engage, right? And so, yeah, just with that being said, I'm fluent. Do you have any final thoughts or words for the people of this episode 105 of Lyrical Ones podcast?
Okay. I think things will turn out just fine if folks just navigate in that space of not just provision, but also in caretaking. And as LO, their proposition, I think what I love about the community is that from the beginning, the vibe was always about lifting up the artist. And if folks have been living a life diminishing or belittling or shrinking the artist, spending time, spending conversations, spending moments and experiences where people have the example of what the artist lifted up looks like in their life, and see it happen in others' lives, it makes sense not just to be a part of the community, but also to transition to a lifestyle where you've grown up the artist, the creator, the creative person within. It makes sense for folks to show up and say, oh, my art side is bigger than it's ever been. Maybe when I was preoccupied and distracted, it's hard for me to imagine a sustainable lifestyle this way. But actually, I could do this for the rest of my life. I could create a system centered around my creativity and my expression to the point that others can join along in that system to where it's not taking away from me and my family and the balance that I have in my life. And I always think about Lauryn Hill's uh, unplugged sessions, and she talking about it's like the lack of balance in her life at one point to where she was doing everything she can to have her voice be available for a show or a performance, and how it was harming her. And now, well, at least during that recording, she was just making an emphasis to do what felt good. Even stopping to drink water or have some tea. And I think folks just gotta find the unplugged moment and find that water that sustains, that rejuvenates, and excites. It excites the body.
Energized.
Water of life.
With that, per usual, as we often do at this time,
Once, 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 opposition. Once, 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 opposition.